maybe today, looking back, I would say, well, you've done some crazy things, Karen, and you should have slowed down. But I've got to say, there was always a bit of me that wanted to impact what is happening in the world. There is a thing in me that basically is always going to chase justice. And I thought that I was young and I thought that I could change the world through revealing the truth, right? But at the end of the day, journalism is a business like any other business.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumi Tech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with C-Tech. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Meet Keren Pakes, the general manager of the Bright Initiative by Bright Data. Keren, a former award-winning BBC journalist, has for over a decade covered the most prominent news stories of the period and led innovative programs and initiatives. When she left the BBC after 14 years, the foundation moved to management positions in the field of marketing in the world of technology and served as a volunteer spokesperson for a number of non-profit social organizations with the aim of advancing them towards their important goals. Keren Pakes, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited for these 20 minutes where, so many different questions come to mind. You have such a unique background. Today is the general manager of the Bright Initiative by Bright Data, and previously having a lot to do also with marketing and communications, both with Bright Data, but then also with Amdocs. But even going before that, before entering tech in that world, you were an executive producer and editor within BBC for almost 10 years. And so, Ken, I can't wait to understand with you, what was that experience like with BBC and with these different things that you were doing as a journalist, and then transitioning more into tech, but bringing a lot of those really meaningful understandings. So Keren, thank you so much for being here.
I love being here, and thank you for inviting me. I was a journalist actually in total for 14 years. I didn't intend to be a journalist. It was by fluke, really. I was a psychology student and I was in an exchange program here in Israel. And a journalist came to lecture us. And I think that I asked too many questions. So at the end of the session, I'm not a very tall woman. So he said, you, the short one, come and talk to me. These are before the PC days. And I came to talk to him and he offered me a job. And the rest is, I was 19 at the time and started working as a journalist. Yeah. And the rest is history. When I joined the BBC, it was also by coincidence. I arrived, there was a whole committee. I wasn't even prepared. They had a chair that was too high for me, and basically my legs kept on dangling down. And they asked plenty of questions. And on the same day, they let me know that I was accepted to the job. I worked all around the Middle East, America, Europe, Africa. Loved it. Being a journalist is like being where history is made. And back in the day when I was very young, this is very exciting. So all the war zones, all the critical political crises, everything. And I love doing it. And when I left being a journalist, I was puzzled and didn't know where I should go. And, journalism and media are sometimes similar to marketing because at the end of the day, we all talk to target audiences. So I decided to try my luck. And the high-tech space apparently is very suitable for me because, the speed and the racing against deadlines and everything like that is very much me. And storytelling, it's at the heart of everything, really, even when you're talking technology and products. So I love it. That's kind of a very quick summary of everything that I've done.
I can only a very very quick summary. Obviously, having spent 14 years as a journalist and then working for some amazing companies, and today with today's experience with the Bright Initiative and the work that you're doing with data and looking and working with organizations on understanding how collection is made to the best ability. Take me back a little bit though to journalism, because I really wanted to dissect the skills you gained as a journalist that allowed you to then be a good storyteller, to be a good communication artist and marketer. But real marketing is just storytelling. Sometimes they give it a bad rep, but really it's just the ability to tell what's happening. You started doing it in war zones. What was that about? How does that experience teach you for today?
Well, maybe today, looking back, I would say, well, you've done some crazy, crazy things, Keren, and you should have slowed down. But I've got to say, there was always a bit of me that wanted to impact what is happening in the world. There's a thing in me that basically is always going to chase justice. And I thought that I was young and I thought that I could change the world through revealing the truth, right? But at the end of the day, journalism is a business like any other business. And obviously, rating matters. When I think that the thing that made the BBC a very good fit to me was the versatility of the news, and also you're sent everywhere. So for instance, I'll give you an example. You don't know where you're going to sleep the next, like even today, you can be called into the middle. I remember celebrating one of my birthdays, having a party with lots of my friends. I got a call because there was a flood in Mexico. I got on a plane 2 hours later.
Oh
I
my
had to
God.
read up very, very quickly. It wasn't even a flood. I'm sorry. It was a hurricane. I reached the place. I have to get things on air within a matter of minutes, and understand the story and get interviews and put together and edit a story very quickly. And those days, it was much harder than it is today. And in general, when you do war zones, you forget that your life is at risk. You really do. You're all about the story. I remember that I once had to have a new journalist with me, and it was in the day of the Lebanon war in 2007. And he had no idea what was happening all around. And there are rockets flying around and everything. And he was looking at me and saying, what exactly is happening? I said, just focus on the story. And I was very calm. And it was when we finished the day, he looked at me and he said, I think you need to, how come you're so calm? And I said to him, I'm just focused on delivering the story. And I didn't see anything else. And, this is South Lebanon. It's not like in the days of war. It's not like, it's not even like being in Tel Aviv when rockets are flying from Gaza. This is full on war. You just don't see it. You don't feel it. And I think that because I was younger then, I think I even more so focused on my task. And my task was to deliver a story on time and that is compelling enough and that, beats the competition. So that was it.
Right.
So
Now
that's
you're
how I
looking
got to
at,
it.
if I'm looking at, the parallelism, and not definitely not to lower it from the magnitude of a war and what's happening there,
Exactly.
but you're looking at you're describing a situation in which you're arriving to a place of crisis as a journalist, right? A lot of times, you sort of have to come up with a product that you're basically sharing with audience, right? And you're basically building the narrative of what's happening, and you have to very concisely distribute that story to the world, and so that they understand what's happening, they buy into it, they form an opinion, and they get emotionally attached, right? Because at the end, that's part of storytelling. And so if you're looking then at the high-tech world, how do you come up with stories, and how do you know which narrative is going to stick and how to tell a story the best way? What does it come down to really for you?
So, Michael, you put it very eloquently correct, because at the end of the day, it's about a connection to your target audience. It's about, people say that product storytelling or technology storytelling is all about rationale. or a narrative is about rationale. It's not. It's about an emotional connection. And you need to talk to the hearts before you talk to the heads. Even when you're doing business, you're talking to the heart first. Okay. I always say that people remember the experience you give them more than they remember the words you're telling them. So, for instance, when I do a session, and I just did one yesterday about data and the importance of web data collection, public web data collection to the competitive landscape. So I don't tell them the story in terms of the product and what the product does and how we deliver it. I tell them the story through examples, real life examples of how our product comes into life and how it impacts their lives, okay, that target audience life. So if it's the end user or if it's the business, because we're a B2B business, if it's a B2B business, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, it's all about that. And it's about telling it in a sharp way that just basically penetrates their heart, if I'm saying it correctly, because you don't have that much time to tell a story, really. And in the news days, I remember when we were fighting for 2-minute stories, that was a long time. Nowadays, like 50 seconds is enough to tell a story, or 40 seconds. It's really the same when it comes to storytelling in tech. The first time that a customer talks to you, same way, it's about your opening, and it's about targeting exactly what he's interested in, what is his pain points or what is his challenges, and knowing it and relating to it right away.
Incredible. Okay, Bright Initiative, sharp turn today. And there were a lot of different things in the way with MDocs and Bright Data, but today, general manager of Bright Initiative. And we're talking about data. This is very different from journalism. It's very different from storytelling. How do you explain this transition, and what is Bright Initiative for context?
Okay, so I'll start with a simple background to the Bright Initiative, and then I'll address your question. And actually, you'll find out that it's not that different. And anyone who knows me will understand right away why I established the Bright Initiative. So the Bright Initiative was born at the early days of the pandemic. Well, actually, because of the early days of the pandemic, when the pandemic, if you remember March 2020, when we all were under lockdown, no one knew anything about this pandemic. What is COVID? So we had researchers around the world approaching us with the emergency to access data. They wanted as much data as possible within 24 hours to make it kind of visible to my CEO himself and 2 developers, including and myself as well. All of us decided to take this project right away, and we delivered the data with under 24 hours. It was to Asuta Hospital. It was in collaboration with AWS Israel, and I think if I remember, other bodies as well. It was back in March. Incredible. So we saw the critical need of data and how data actually, and I'm not being, I'm putting it simply, and it sounds really big, but it is that data can save lives, really. So at the end of the day, we saw that more and more researchers are joining. And I kept on, the list kept on growing. And all of a sudden I had 100 organizations needing our data. And this can be organizations that are fighting human trafficking, or organizations that are fighting sex trafficking. And how they do it is...
When you say they need data, what do you actually mean? What does that mean that an organization needs data?
So I'll give you an example of an organization. For instance, HTI Labs. HTI Labs is an organization that fights sex trafficking. Now, why do they need us? They need access to lots and lots and lots advertisements that appear apparently on Craigslist for sex trafficking, really promoting sex trafficking in certain ways. They know the codes, they know the lingo. I don't think I'm very familiar with human trafficking or sex trafficking, and it's better that I wouldn't be. But they asked us to help with accumulating all this data. Now, this is public web data. I mean, it's not behind the sign up, it's not behind the login, it's out in the
Right.
open for you to see. So if you have to do it yourself and collect it, it means that you're going to sit hours and hours, maybe days and days collecting it. We automate it. So this is what they needed from us, and this is what we've done so far. And we've been in partnership with them for a year now. And obviously, our technology was very helpful to them. And there are many others. Like I can give you more and more examples if you wish. But even in Israel, LM, are now they have this project called New Story. That they look into social media to find potential teenagers that are suffering from abuse. Now, it's not in full scale yet or anything like that, but together with them, we partnered to basically deliver that public web data and to help them identify those cases. So, you know, here it is, it's doing good, and we understand that partnership and data can really make a difference. And we're also involved in so many environmental organizations, and even we support the NDS, the UK NDS National Data Strategy, and help them with our expertise. And we provide sessions on top of sessions around the world, even in Israel.
Wow.
Ort Natanya just a few days ago did a session with us. So we love it because it's all about education. It's all about really changing things. And when with data is actually the engine today behind supporting our economy, and data skill sets are needed more than more. Actually, there's huge gaps now in
Yeah.
data. So this is something that we are very much focused on. And if to your question, at the end of
When
the day,
you,
also as a journalist, I wanted to change
yeah,
the world for the good. So I
I
guess,
love it.
yeah.
The word initiative with Bright. Well, what does that mean that it's the Bright initiative? Why is the word there?
It started off with really an idea of how to do it. And like anything else with my company, because I belong to Bright Data, but I also belong to the Bright Initiative, and Bright Initiative is separate. And Bright Data, I do marketing. Um, so it started off, we didn't know if it will stick, okay, when I
Yeah.
started it. And like my CEOs, and this is what's wonderful about him, my CEOs is always said, start small, see what's happening. If it works, let's turn it to our organization. So we started with the name initiative, and we loved it. And at the end of the day, it remained an initiative. It's now, obviously, we have now close to 400 organizations partnering with us, and it's growing every day. Like only today, we had 5 organizations join us, and and they're all leading universities. So it's wonderful to see, and it's wonderful to see that there is a need that we are addressing. And obviously, we look into ways now to build more and more organizations around it, and we're going to build an academy. Well, we're launching an academy in March. So that's it.
I think it's incredible, and I just love the story of how this started off, with the use case of a pandemic, but then you realize that there is actually a greater need around the world for the way the data is being collected, and obviously, and unfortunately, a lot of these organizations that are dealing with a lot of these issues, like human trafficking and sex trafficking, and they often aren't the ones with the most capital that can now onboard a team of data scientists and people that can go on and get the highest quality data, right? I mean, I'm sure that they do have their own means, but it's definitely not the same as a traditional tech company that is going on and needing the data. So I think obviously that you're doing amazing work. Now, if you're looking now at where you're at as a marketer and as a storyteller, what do you enjoy most about what you do? It's a trivial question, but not really. Like, if you look really at the core of what you do, what do you really enjoy most?
I'll be honest, I'm still a sucker for storytelling. So, for instance, when I have a university calling me about a research, it just blows my mind. We're working now, for instance, with Northeastern University on the research that looks into disinformation or misinformation between China, Russia, and United States, and we're helping it, I just want to hear more. Okay. So I'm still attracted to that. I can't say that maybe this is the part that will never go away. Today, my CEO told me a story about a farmer that is using us to understand how to better anticipate how he grows his own products or own. So, in a farmer in the US, and we're helping him. I'm still, I would say I'm still mesmerized by that. This is still what energizes me. I love the contact with people. I can't say I'm still a people person after all. When I was a journalist, in order to do my job, I had to connect with people. You can't get stories without having like decent connections with people. And when you're doing it fast, you have to connect fast, right? You have to right away speak to them. So I'm still there. It's still me. I love tech because the speed of tech is amazing. But at the end of the day, it's all about storytelling for me.
I love it. I love it. Keren, really thank you for coming, and thank you for the great work you're doing. And I love what you're doing with the Bright Initiative. It's so cool. And your own journey is just so cool as well. So thank you very, very much. And stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael, for having me.
Of course. Thank you. Take care.